Hello YouTube! I recently completed a complete walkthrough to Satellite Rain, which if you follow the channel you'll be aware of. Now, having played the game through to completion twice now, once for myself and then again for the guys, I've become very familiar with it, so I'd like to take the opportunity to document what I believe are some legitimate criticisms. But wait, I hear you ask. You spent all this time making a complete walkthrough. Surely you must, like the game. Well, yes, I do. It's a good game. But I don't think it's unfair to say that it has some flaws. Areas for improvement, if you will. The purpose of this video is to document these issues in the hope that if there is a follow-up, and I hope that there is, then they will be addressed. I don't want to give the impression that I'm bad-mouthing the game, however, or trying to diminish the achievement that 5 Live Studio has made by making it in the first place. So before I tackle the problems, I'll start by discussing what I actually like about it. Just the fact that some people were determined to make a new Syndicate game gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling. And I mean a proper Syndicate game. An RTS game that is both reminiscent of the first two titles, whilst also developing the formula in new ways. I don't mean a huge publisher cobbling together a game that is nothing like the original at all, and then slapping the name on the box because they want to cash in on an existing IP they still hold the rights to, but don't know what to do with. Not that I'm suggesting that anyone would do such a thing. EA. The biggest asset Satellite Rain has is its city. It looks fantastic, and it has real variety in its environments. From the grimy, litter-strewn, seedy areas of downtown, to the harsh, hot environments of the industrial district, and the gleaming neon futurism of the grid, the city is beautiful and rich in detail. The fact that the development team consisted of 5 people is extraordinary to me. The city looks like it had 10 times the budget that it did, and is a shining example of what can be created when a few talented and dedicated individuals come together to create something and really put the hours in. As for the gameplay, the clear focus is on stealth, and thankfully this does work well. Pulling off a heist undetected and getting out without setting off any alarms is always satisfying. And there are moments of real tension when your agents are running out of energy and the approaching guards are just around the corner. I also like that your 4 agents are unique individuals with their own abilities, instead of just being identikit operatives like they were in Syndicate and Syndicate Wars. It does mean, however, that some characters are more useful than others, with a focus on stealth, meaning that the infiltrator and hacker will tend to develop far more than the soldier and especially the support agent will. It has already been pointed out many times in other reviews and in the forums that the game has bugs, and it does. Whether it's characters, both playable and AI, becoming stuck and unable to move, or wandering through poison gas to certain death, or just dancing on the spot. There are definitely a few bugs that take you out of the game. But the bugs aren't a deal breaker for me. Given the game's ambition and the really small development team, a few bugs are to be expected. Now, the biggest problem for me is the combat. And I'm not talking about the silent kills you get from sneaking up behind someone and quietly dispatching them with a pistol or melee attack. If you've watched the walkthrough at all, you'll know that that shit is my bread and butter. Now, I'm referring to the shooting, the gunplay, which is the most unsatisfying aspect of the game. This is especially problematic for a game that touts itself as the spiritual successor to Syndicate Wars, which was a shooting game through and through, and something that it did exceptionally well for its time. There are 2 major problems with the shooting in Satellite Rain. Firstly, the weapons pack very little punch until very late into the game. You can see what I mean here. Even with all of my agents firing at a single, uncovered, unarmored target at point-blank range, they don't drop him for a surprisingly long while. Being shot by 4 people at once with assault rifles, he should die immediately, but he doesn't, and his resilience makes a mockery of your weapon. The because it's really satisfying when you find that the gun you've spent a lot of time and money to research and then purchase for all of your agents does next to no damage at all. Wonderful. So that's the first problem. The second problem is that no one reacts to being shot. There doesn't appear to be any impact animations, at least for guns. So bullets and other projectiles don't seem to register at all. Even in Syndicate Wars, a game from 20 years ago, getting shot has an effect. Weapons fire knocks enemies back, it staggers them, and they're unable to shoot back. And this was back in the days of sprites, with 2 or 3 frames of animation. Now, I realise that animation is a lot more complex these days, but this is a major oversight. The only thing that actually seems to knock targets back are explosives and getting close enough to kick them. Yes, ridiculously, kicking an enemy is both more damaging than a shotgun blast to the face, and will also stagger them as well, whereas the shotgun does nothing at all. Even miniguns seem to cause no reaction from your enemies at all, even at close range, when they're getting thrashed to pieces. The only indication that you have that your minigun is causing them damage is the small chipping away of their armor and health bar, as you can see from this example here. And don't even try and say that, oh well, this guy is behind cover, because at this range it shouldn't make any difference. When your enemies stay steadfastly rooted to the spot, despite getting hit from multiple angles from supposedly powerful weapons, it makes the combat unsatisfying. Many of the game's weapons feel underpowered as well, even late into the game, and this is despite costing a lot of time and money to research. It makes you wonder what the point was of researching them in the first place, when they cause so little damage and cause no reaction in your targets. These two issues also mean that firefights can quickly become unmanageable, as alarms are sounded and enemies swarm in and overwhelm you, as you simply can't kill them fast enough. Perhaps this was intentional, given the focus on stealth, but it can get a wee bit depressing when your heavily armed and augmented, supposedly badass unit is forced to turn tail and run from a handful of guards. The trenchcoat wearing cyborgs in Syndicate Wars never would have stood for that. The combat is flawed, then, but certainly not disastrous. The lasers, plasma weapons and explosives all look and sound great, but feel oddly underpowered. It's just not all it could have been. There are some design choices that are just plain weird, however. Take the energy bar for example. It powers your agent's abilities like Cloak and Team Stims, but also covers sprinting for some reason? So, wait, if your agents run fast for a few seconds, they can't use any of their electronic abilities? Why? And on the flip side, using an electrically powered ability like Cloak stops your agents from moving their legs faster? This makes no logical sense, and could have easily been fixed by having separate bars for stamina, which would drain from sprinting, and energy, which would cover the agent's abilities. Also, why are your agents unable to jump 2 feet to reach a high vent unless they have a leg modification? Has gravity become stronger in the future? If you want players to accept that high vents are inaccessible without some kind of hydraulic enhancement, then at least make them look like they're inaccessible instead of being just above the agents' heads. The game's layout is also a little bit cold. You're given a basic voiceover introduction and a tutorial, which is fine, but once you get past that, you're kind of thrown into the city without a clear direction other than a couple of screens of text. If you look at other open world games like GTA, Assassin's Creed or Far Cry, you're free to explore the environment, but if players get lost in it, there's always a central narrative to come back to that helps guide them through. Satellite Reign lacks a strong narrative, or even, let's be honest, a moderate one, so the motivation to complete missions doesn't really extend beyond the fact that they're on a shopping list of things to do, and you might get some money and better stuff out of them. This leads to the next issue, the repetitiveness. I said before that the different areas of this city have a rich variety to their locations that belies the game's relatively humble budget and small development team, and I do stand by that. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for the mission variety. All 4 sections of the city have exactly the same type of missions to complete: a bank to rob, a guard station and a CSA to slow down cameras and enemy reinforcements, and then longer missions where you require most of your gear and weapons. Some of these longer missions are really enjoyable to complete, but once you have the full hacking, hardwiring and cloak abilities, you can complete them the same way every time. It would have been nice to have a different type of mission thrown in now and again to change things up. Like that mission in Syndicate Wars where you were thrown right into the middle of an enemy stronghold and the only objective was to just kill everything. Or the mission where you had to take out a tank and then defend yourself against large waves of enemies. Or what about that time you had to split your agents up and protect the public speaker from assassination? Something unique like those would have made a nice break from all the sneaking around and would have given the frequently underused soldier and support agents something more to do than just hardwiring machines and using WorldScan. I've said that the city is the game's biggest asset, which it is, but at times it can feel a wee bit lifeless. A couple of simple things could have been done to give it a bit more spark and make it feel like a city instead of just a playground for your agents, which it does at times. A richer variety of sounds would have gone a long way in this regard. Again, if you look at other open world games, you'll see, or rather hear, what I mean. In the Batman Arkham games, for example, you'll overhear random conversations as you pass over crowds of people, often relating to events occurring within the game.
Stuck up here. $50 says I could hit a desk sergeant through a window. No way in hell could you make that shot. Give me a rifle and I'll prove it. You're on. I'll get a couple of rifles in the next supply drop. Whoever hits the most cops wins. Clean kills only, though. We don't want to cause any unnecessary suffering.
This really helps create a sense of a larger world, where your actions have repercussions that get people talking. Now, I know that comparing a mega-budget AAA title like Grand Theft Auto or Batman Arkham Knight to a small indie game like Satellite Reign is not fair, but even if you go back to Syndicate Wars from 1996, you can hear lines of dialogue. Police shout commands and civilians cry out in distress when shots are fired. In Satellite Reign, civilians do flee from gunfights, but are completely silent doing it. Guards don't shout stop, enemies don't taunt you, there isn't a single line of dialogue in the game. The city looks great, but just a few recorded words or phrases would have gone a long way to giving it more character and life. I could have happily done without the voiceover narration at the start of each area if it was replaced by a few lines of dialogue or background chatter instead. The last thing I want to discuss, appropriately enough, is the ending. This is the only thing that really irked me. At this point I will put up a spoiler warning, since I'm going to obviously talk about the ending, so if you haven't played the game through to completion and don't want to know how it ends, then please don't watch this part. You have been warned. I put up a time code which you can skip to and it will save you all of the discussion about the ending. All of the previous points I've raised are things that I believe could have been improved with some adjustments, but the ending I would throw in the bin altogether. I'm not talking about the last battle with Dengler, which is actually quite good, because it finally gives you a genuine combat mission and you can just sneak your way to victory. No, I'm referring to the actual ending. You fought a titanic battle against your enemy after climbing to the top of the tallest tower and wiping him out and achieving your goal, and then a satellite crashes into the city and wipes everybody out. What the deuce? Is this meant to be like a play on words, kind of, Satellite Rain, where it's literally raining satellites? Was that what they were going for? I don't know, but I honestly can't get my head around it. You've spent God knows how many hours searching through every nook and cranny of the city to find every weapon and augmentation to build your agents up, to make them strong enough to be able to take on the final boss in his lair, only to then have the ending render all of your actions up to that point utterly pointless. What the fuck, 5 Lives? Okay, so maybe it doesn't take anything away from the enjoyment that you've had playing the game up to that point, but it's still kind of a fuck you to the players. Imagine you've been engrossed in a really gripping novel with really memorable characters, and you've loved every minute of it, only to then have the story end with, and then they all died. Well, that's basically what happens here. Unbelievable. Overall, I would say that Satellite Reign is a flawed, but still solid attempt at recreating Syndicate for the modern gaming era. RTS games like this sadly don't get made very often anymore. The genre just isn't as popular as it once was, which saddens me as I love strategy games, perhaps because I'm a PC gamer through and through, and they always work best on that format. Despite the length of time I spent talking about the game's problems, I don't see any of them as deal breakers. And if you haven't played the game and you enjoy strategy and/or stealth games, then I have no problem recommending that you give this a try. For a rating, I would give this 3.5 stars out of 5. The work that 5 Live Studio has put into this, and the support they've had through Kickstarter makes me hopeful that RTS games like this still have a future, and I hope that this isn't the last we've seen of Satellite Reign. Thanks for watching.